Good morning, warriors. Welcome to the U Movement. I am B. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about something that has been the current lesson that keeps kind of coming in and showing up for me as of late, which is the lesson of how suffering is actually a blessing in disguise. Now, I know a lot about suffering. The first 50 years of my life were not what I would call an easy go of it. I had a lot of trauma from adoption, abuse. I was assaulted multiple times. I was raped. I had bad relationships that turned into abusive relationships. Lots of up and downs when it came to jobs and finances, you name it. I know struggle. And it reminds me of a story that I shared a couple of times, which was my background when I was in my young 20s. I went to college and studied Native Community Worker Addictions Counselling was the program that I graduated from. And in my last semester, just before I'm about to graduate and, take off and start this new career, I was participating, co-hosting, co-facilitating a women's talking circle in a recovery center, an AA-based program. And I was sitting there and everybody was, getting their turn to go around to have their say. And this one woman looked at me with venomous look and she was angry. She was very angry. And she looked at me and she said, who the fuck do you think you are to show up and tell any of us how to live our lives? Who the fuck do you think you are? I was way taken back and went home that day from work bawling my eyes out, crying and so upset because what she said was the truth, 100% what the truth. And what she was basically saying to me without saying it in a nice Buddhist kind of way was, you haven't experienced enough suffering to know anything about anything. You with your book smarts and your good grades, you haven't experienced life. So I decided I wasn't going to go into working in the field of addictions counseling. I was going to go get more education and go get some life experience. And so I took life as an adventure and flew by the seat of my pants to accumulate as much life experience as I could, living in foreign countries. I lived in Japan for a stretch. I lived in Ireland for 10 years. I had multiple failed relationships. I have said in videos, I used any number of coping mechanisms to hide my own pain and repress my own trauma. Drinking was my drug of choice, as well as cigarettes. And then through the years, of course, food and all kinds of other things to repress that suffering, to repress, to depress, to push down, to I don't want to look at, let's shove it in a drawer, let's put on a happy face and pretend everything is just hunky-dory fine. When it wasn't. At its core, it wasn't. There was deep pain inside of me that I had my whole life, in and out of depression, in and out of time periods where I had a lot of suicidal thoughts, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear not being accepted, fear of not being loved, fear of being rejected, fear of being ridiculed, fear, lots of fears throughout my entire life. And then this awakening began, this it still kind of boggles my mind a little bit, because it's so out of the realm of what my mind can even understand. So even though through my life I was constantly searching and seeking for ways out of suffering through study, through the mind, I even got to a nice place for a period of time where I would have considered myself quite woke and, you know, spiritually knowledgeable. And there's a difference between being spiritually knowledgeable and being spiritual. Yesterday I did a card read, and one of the cards, the archetypical energies that came up in that card read was the energy of the hypocrite. And I can see myself in that as a shadow element, because, you know, as a Reiki master, I would be telling people all the things that they should be doing, that I learned are the things to do, but I wasn't doing them. I wasn't doing them self. I was still using food to soothe. I was still using alcohol on the weekends, and still smoking, and still, you know, repressing my own trauma, and not facing reality. It's that escape from suffering. And I think it's Karl Marx that says that, not Karl Marx, sorry, oh, it's flown out of my mind right now, Carl Jung. Carl, got the Carl part right. There we go, Carl's. It was Carl Jung that said people will do the most crazy things, most insane things ever to push away their suffering, to escape from it. And what I've learned on this awakening path, this twin flame journey that I find myself on, is how beneficial suffering actually is. And listen, if you're on a twin flame journey, which is kind of like a spiritual awakening on speed, or because it's just so fast and it's so powerful, to when you have a Kundalini that's been activated, and you know, this twin flame situationship, at times I've been like, get me off this, where's the exit ramp? This is brutal. This is the worst thing in the entire world. Like, really, there's a lot of romantic notions out there, and I see these videos that are like, oh, this is your divine union, and this and that, and I'm like, I don't know what you people are smoking, but like, this is hard, this is brutal, this is painful. You know, you fall in love with somebody, you meet somebody that for the first time in your life you feel like, whoa, I totally get you, and then they fuck off and you're left going, ah. And what that process is it's an activation of a Kundalini, an activation of your spiritual awakening, so that it's like lifting the lid off of all of the things that you've repressed in there, and they all have to come out and be felt. And it's in the felt experiencing of the suffering that things begin to transmute. So, although I joke that, you know, I'm so over it, I want off of it, this needs to end, and, you know, I'll have arguments with God, like, please, enough already. I can actually, like, laugh about it a little bit and see the value in it, because it is the path through suffering that one becomes enlightened. And I'm not saying that, oh, I'm, you know, the next coming of Eckhart Tolle or Dalai Lama or anything. I've got a lot of work to do still, but I'm a lot better off than where I was when this journey began. And so to this morning, I was doing some journal work, just sitting out in the grass, absorbing some light codes. And I wanted to share with you what I have learned, because maybe it will resonate with you in regards to the great teacher that is suffering. So number one is appreciation. And when you've lived a life that's basically been shit, and I kind of look at it like I was a seed, you know, I call myself a Blu-ray star seed because that resonates for me. And I was a seed that was implanted deep into the dark, and I was fertilized with a fuck ton of shit. And, you know, now I'm sprouting through and coming up into the light, since that time of, soul recognition. It's like, whoa, I am light. The good things can happen to me. You know, that bliss phase was like breaking through the surface of the soil. And then having a lot more shit thrown on top of you. But I have so much appreciation now in my life where I didn't before, because when good things start to show up, and you know, my health is so much more improved, my mental capacity is coming back online after being shut down for so many years with severe memory loss and, you know, brain damage. I'm so grateful for the appreciation that I have, you know, a sunny day, a good moment that comes, and you do get these little woofs, these little like breaths of fresh air on your awakening. You know, you're down in the dark a lot, going into the muck to unfuck, and then you come up and there's like, you'll get a day, or maybe it's only an hour, but you know, I have so much appreciation for even the journey, because without it I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't be in front of this camera. I wouldn't be I wouldn't be living this life. And yes, it's still hard, but I can appreciate now even the hard, because the hard is training me, it's leading me, it's transforming me, it's doing all of these things, and I have a great amount of appreciation. You know, that doesn't mean I've liked it. Appreciation doesn't mean, yeah, I like it, because I certainly haven't. You know, going through the cycles of grief and despair and all the tears and all the fears. You know, for a year and a half I've been in insane fear and anxiety, terror at times, as all of these life situations squeeze the crap out of me. And I even have appreciation for all the shitty things that happened to me, because without all those shitty things that happened to me, I wouldn't be able to give you my insights on how I escaped from those things, so that you too can escape from those things. So even all the shitty people, the shitty situations, I have appreciation for the suffering, because the suffering has taught me, like that woman at that addictions counseling circle said, you know, I now have experience, so I can appreciate, and for that, it's taken a while to get there, because when you're going through it, you're like, this is horrible. What a horrible experience this spiritual awakening is, this twin flame crap. Yes. Number 2 is humbleness. Through Dark Night of the Soul, you go through a lot of disintegration or destruction of the ego. And the ego has, you know, come into existence at a young age when you were experiencing traumas to protect you. You know, I understand my ego was working doubly hard to keep me protected, because nobody else was. And, you know, the ego would be like, here, have some cigarettes, that will soothe you. Here, put on this mask, that will make you blend in a little bit more. Here, have some alcohol so you can have a social life, because you're a little bit socially awkward. Here, you know, do this, do that. So the ego has been working for me, but the problem with the ego is it takes over, it takes control. It's like Loki in the Avengers that's gone a little bit mad for power. And what happens through ego death is ego loses power. Ego is put back in its place. It's tamed. And, you know, with that taming, you get a whole new sense of humbleness, because spirit is coming in and just pummeling you hard with life situations, with what I call the fuckeries. You know, like, it's like one thing after another. Things are going wrong. People are leaving. There's this crisis. There's that crisis. There's this issue. And it's just like, wow, you know, my ego, I joke, must have been the size of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in Ghostbusters, because it was huge. Of course, I didn't know that it was huge. I thought that was me. You know, you think you are your ego until your ego begins to disintegrate, and then you realize, oh, wow, you know, I'm brought back down to size. You're brought down to earth. You're put in your place, and that place is, for me, in service, you know, and understanding that there needs to be a lot of showing up in the world with my appreciation, with my knowledge, so that I can help assist others for a higher and greater, something far higher and greater than me, you know. So, which brings me into point number 3, which is, you know, my reconnection to God. And I know God is a word that not everybody resonates with, so you know, use whatever word you want. The universe, source, the creator, the divine, all of them, in my opinion, are saying the exact same thing. I don't subscribe to any one particular religion, but I think all of them have amazing truths embedded in them. They also have a lot of mistruths embedded in each of them as well. So I'm a truth seeker, and I'll find truth any which way. You know, if that's reading ancient Jewish texts, I'm going to read that. If that's reading Buddhist texts, I'm going to read that. If that's learning from the wisdom of the elders in our First Nations peoples, I'm going to learn, that, you know. So I reclaimed the word God, because it was a dirty word in my household. I was raised by an atheist, and religion or spirituality was a no-no. And so I had a lot of shame around the word God, and embarrassment. I would have been embarrassed. You know, I'd be at Reiki training, and, you know, they'd be doing prayers, and I'd be like, oh geez, you know, I can't pray to God, you know, like, who am I to pray to God? And so before, I used to always say the universe, because that was a more comfortable word for me. But on this spiritual awakening, I've reclaimed that word and said, you know what? I don't need to define God by other people's definitions of God. I can take that word and define it for me, which is, you know, this energy that is way bigger than me, that I am a part of. You know, all is one. It's in me, it's in the grass, it's in the trees, it's in everywhere. This energy that is the all-knowing, all-being life force. So I took that back, and with taking that back, I was able to cultivate a greater amount of faith. But it's only through suffering. When you're in a ball in the middle of the night, and you're going through dark night of the soul or spiritual crisis, which feels like absolute hell, where do you turn? Well, you return to prayer, and you return to God, and like, please. Like, through this process, my prayer practice went from nothing to a constant, practically. You know, throughout the day I'm praying. It's a continual conversation now of, you know, please guide me. Please let me be useful. Please let me be of service. Please show me the way. Please help me. Please heal me. And so It's through suffering that you return to whatever that energy is. You return to a place of faith and connection to something that's higher and greater than yourself, higher and greater than your ego, for sure. Because my ego would have thought that I could have sorted everything else. You know, like I could have micromanaged the universe if you would let me. And you know, there's certainly been times where on the spiritual awakening, I'm like, where is the itinerary? What is happening? I need to know now. And Spirit is like, wait. And that's the only message I get. And I'm like, I don't want to wait. I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. This is yucky. This is the ick. And so when you're in the ick, you return to faith. So suffering has brought me back to faith, where, you know, it's funny because a piece of me feels like because I was raised in an atheist household, that I was robbed of something that a lot of other people got to have as a child, and that would have made me angry. But my appreciation for my faith now is even more so, because it's nothing that I had before, so it was nothing that I could have taken advantage of, or just, you know, whatever. To me, it is like the cornerstone, the central place of when I'm struggling. I return to a practice of prayer. And I had to even learn how to pray, because I didn't know how to pray. I had no idea. I even asked a couple of people from different religions, how do you pray? Do I have to do it in a certain position? Do I have to say certain things? And it was a Muslim woman who directed me the best. And you know, I absolutely loved her. And she was like, you know, is get down, just humble yourself. And so I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. But she's like, I don't think you need to stand or lie or kneel or do any particular position. Just it's about humbling yourself energetically. And I loved that, how she described that to me. The fourth thing that my suffering has taught me, which I never had before, was boundaries. And with boundaries came the life lesson of my value, because I thought that I was trash. When you go through life living a pretty shitty existence, you know, you accept being treated pretty shitty, because that's what you think. If I'm trash and then people are treating you like trash, it just confirms that you're trash. And so you resonate in energies that are less than desirable, because you feel less than desirable, less than deserving. And so through this awakening process, and I can still remember it was, you know, about a month after I had soul recognition with my twin, I was out walking, and it suddenly just dawned on me. It was like I was hit with this beam of light. I have had a lot of very intense mystical experiences in the last 3 years, like intense, and this beam of light just hit me, and I had the message given to me that I was light, I was of the light. So when you think your whole life that you are trash, and that you are you know, living this dark, depressing, suffering existence, and then you get this like new level of awareness that you are light, you start to see your value as a whole totally different thing. And I started appreciating myself and seeing the value and the positive attributes. I used to go through life all the time asking the question, am I a bad person? Am I a bad person? Because all these bad situations would keep showing up in these really shitty situations. And so I figured, because of my teachings of the law of attraction, that I must be, you know, manifesting this because this is what I deserved on some level. So when I switched out of the dark and into the light and came to this awareness that, wait a second here, I'm actually a good person. I'm kind, I'm compassionate, I'm loving, I'm generous, you know, and I made a list of all the attributes and qualities that I had, because I didn't believe any of those things. And once I saw that I was all of those things, I learned what boundaries were for the first time. I learned that I didn't have to negate myself to attempt to get people to like me, or alter myself in attempt to get people to like me. And so I, through suffering, learned that I don't deserve suffering. And I'm not going to accept or tolerate suffering anymore. Obviously, there's still the suffering that spirit provides you, that you have no say in the matter. But here on earth, you do have say. You have the say to say, I'm not going to tolerate abuse. You have the say to say, I'm out of here. This is over. I deserve better than this, and creating healthy boundaries. So if I hadn't have suffered, I wouldn't have known that I didn't need to suffer, that I had some degree of control over what I allowed to happen. So when you shift and this was early on the stage, shift into an energy of awareness of what suffering is. You have to actually see your suffering before you can step away from it and alter it. So suffering is a great teacher. The fifth thing is resilience, fortitude, and strength. Through this spiritual awakening, and even my entire life, for a very extended period of time, I would have been defined as a very strong person. But as I say, that strength came from a place of, I think, a lot of ego, you know, standing firm. I'm gonna like withstand. And withstanding isn't the same as resilience, because with resilience, there's a certain amount of flexibility that comes with it, you know, that says I can roll with the punches a little bit better. And I wasn't good with rolling with the punches at all. I've seen people on their awakening that are like beautiful, guided on a surfboard going, I'm just going with the waves, wee. And I was like tumbling and falling and spewing and, you know, like it was not pretty. By no means. But in doing that, it taught me resilience. It taught me how to move more with spirit, move more with what is trying to be happening for me, as opposed to me, because I was very much as, why is this happening to me? And then you learn and you shift and you adapt into, oh, this is happening for me. This suffering that I'm experiencing has, the crying, the grief is happening to release. The fears are coming up to be fought and addressed and overcome. The physical is coming to make me healthier, you know. So you have to learn, well, with what's coming. The suffering of illness taught me to adapt and change my eating behaviors, my exercise behaviors. The experiences of abuse taught me a greater fortitude to stand in my warrior and say, no, this isn't acceptable at all. So you learn these strengths that are given to you, and that's what it is. So it's through the suffering. It's like you're getting beaten up, but in the process of getting beaten up, you're learning how to fight back. And you're learning how to stand in your own truth and your own strength. And that's a strength that's like a God-given strength, not a strength from ego. You know, soul strength is very different. It is, I'm going to be me. You don't have to like it or not. It doesn't matter anymore. Where ego strength is, please like me, and I'm going to try my best to make myself fit in places that I don't fit, and be strong and stoic in situations that I should leave, you know, instead of ego saying stay firm. No, soul says leave. Number 6 is gratitude, and I had to learn gratitude. I had to learn even how to say thank you. I didn't even know how to do that early on in my awakening process. I went on a healing retreat, and one of the healers was complimenting me, and I was so confused. I was so confused by the compliments, and I was like, I don't know what to say now. Could you like, and she's like, you just have to say thank you. So I started, you know, thank you, and thank you. I still do that. I give thanks. And to me, gratitude is different than appreciation, because appreciation is looking around and seeing good stuff and enjoying it. Whereas gratitude is understanding that somebody is giving you good stuff. Somebody is showing up to you in your life, and that's good. And so, you know, first, Spirit brought in my soul kids. So I have one biological son, and I have 2 others that live with me, all adults, but it's our family, and I consider them my soul kids. I love them absolutely dearly, and it was like a gift bestowed to me that they came into my life. And then earth angels, as I call them, my 3 wise women, my friends that carried me through my incredibly difficult and painful dark night of the soul, and escaping from abuse, and who have been here for me for the thick and thin, and appreciated me just for me. You know, I didn't need to show up in positive energies. I didn't need to show up looking a certain way, being a certain way. For the first time in my life, I was allowed to just be me and be loved for that. And that blew my mind. So I have so much gratitude for that. And then all of my followers that have started showing up, and the interactions that I receive, and the appreciation that I receive, and the likes and the shares and the comments that I receive, you know, all of this just blows my mind. It blows my mind. It really does. And so I have so much gratitude. So if I hadn't have suffered, if I hadn't have known the opposite energy, I wouldn't be in this much gratitude. So like, I can't even express how much gratitude, when you come from where I came from and experience what I experienced, to now be in this energy of interacting with people that appreciate me for who I am. Like, the gratitude that I have is unbelievable. The support that I have received is just mind blowing. And now I have gratitude for like all kinds of things, you know, the little things I appreciate, and I have so much gratitude that I still have a roof over my head. I have gratitude for my cat. I have gratitude for the food that's given to me. There's just, once you start, gratitude is like a snowball effect of, once you start seeing 1 or 2 things that you're grateful for, it just balloons out, and it's like, just keeps getting bigger and better. The number 7 is presence and mindfulness. Through suffering, I had no choice but to learn to be in the present moment, and to practice mindfulness. And when I say practice mindfulness, it's really about getting into the body as much as humanly possible. Because when you're going through dark night of the soul, and you have a lot of trauma, whether you have PTSD or complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which I think probably the majority of the population does and just isn't aware of, it's very difficult to practice presence, because we're either always in a state of a depressive thinking about the past and thinking about what happened before, and why did they do that, and why did they say that, and why could I have done this, and why could I have done that, and beating self up, and you're such a fool, all of that. Or you're thinking like a doomsdayer, which is what I was, of constantly worrying about the next boot dropping, catastrophizing, and absolute sheer panic. Well, you know, if my lawyer does this, then this is going to happen, then that's going to happen, and I better predict absolutely every possible outcome, so that I'm prepared for the worst case scenarios always. And on a spiritual awakening, that is just it's a level of insanity that is designed to break your brain so that you stop relying on your brain and get out of your brain. So the suffering squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed until I had nothing left to do, no other choice to make than to practice presence. I am safe here now. I am safe here now became a regular mantra routinely, or everything is going to be okay. I even have written on my arm right now, it is getting better. You know, like, because your mind spins out very easily. There's a lot of intrusive thoughts. There's a lot of worries, doubts, confusions, fears. Like, I mean, this journey is not easy. It has not been easy for me at all, but it's through the suffering that when things get bad enough, it's only when things get bad enough, when things hit rock bottom, are we willing to change, you know, because we've been holding on to all of this stuff and these behaviors, these thought patterns, these coping mechanisms, any of these things, because they've worked for us. They've worked for us as a means to reduce the suffering. And when they stop working, all we're left with is the suffering. We're just like, now what's gonna, you know, I can't drink. I get like really bad stomach aches and terrible hangovers, and Spirit's telling me to quit that. So now what do I do? Now what I do? How do I numb? How do I, you know? And so what you do is you sit in the suffering. You have to actually feel the suffering. And when you start to actually feel the suffering, is when you go, okay, what can I change about this so that I do differently, so that I can transmute and clear out the suffering? And so I was creating my own suffering by predicting constant worst case scenarios. I'm never going to be loved. This is never going to happen. I'm never going to make it. This is a disaster. I'm failing. I'm going to, you know, like my brain can like beat me up like there's no tomorrow. You know, I was raised in a judgmental household, so I know about judgment and criticism. You know, nobody on the planet at this stage, and I used to be so terrified of what other people would think of me, but now I'm like, there's nobody out there that could say worse things than I've already said to myself. You know, I dare you to try. Actually, I don't. Please don't do that. But like, there is nobody. So the more you sit in your suffering and comfort yourself in the suffering and see how you are also participating in your suffering. And I was participating in my suffering by being 10 days ahead, 10 months ahead, 10 years ahead, instead of being here now in presence, in mindfulness. And it's a practice. It is a practice every single day. It's a practice in every single moment. In every single moment, if I find myself spinning out into a suffering type of thought, I bring myself back. I wiggle my toes. I get back in my feet. I get into my senses. What am I smelling? What am I seeing? What am I touching? What am I hearing? And that's the mindfulness practice, to keep in presence. And so in suffering, I'm learning to not be in another time period, but to be in right here, right now. And, you know, Eckhart Tolle has been trying to teach me that. Well, not personally, but I've read The Power of Now probably about 5 times. And Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul is another very good one. But ultimately, at the end of the day, where I started from, I was talking about, you know, you can be spiritually book smart, but you have to actually practice it. Yeah, so... number 8 is compassion. Suffering has taught me compassion, and this ties into Buddhist teachings. And I love Buddhist teachings because it's all about understanding that all is suffering. There's no one out there that has escaped the world without suffering. Buddha talks about the story of a woman whose child died and was in tremendous grief and came to him and said, please, you know, alleviate me of this suffering. And Buddha said, of course, no problem. I just need you to go to the local village and get a mustard seed from a house that hasn't experienced death. And so she set off on her mission, and she knocked on door after door after door. Can I get a mustard seed, please? If you've not experienced death in this house. And every house was the same. Sorry, we've had death in this house. We know death. We know grief. We know this. And so she came back exhausted, and she's like, there isn't anyone. You need to teach me now. And he said, yes, now we can begin the work, because now you recognize that suffering is a part of life. And so when we cultivate a practice of self-compassion, and that has been a practice, because as I said, I used to be self-beating up, self-loathing, self-criticizing, self-judgment. And I've thrown all those energies out on this awakening path and returned to self-compassion and saying, you know, it's okay. It's okay to feel the way that you feel. It's okay that you are experiencing this pain. It's okay that you are suffering, and show yourself compassion for that. And the more compassion that I had for myself, the more compassion that I have for others. So what we cultivate from within can then go out into the world and help assist others. And so I'm so grateful for the suffering, because without the suffering, I wouldn't have learned compassion. And without the compassion, I wouldn't be able to show up in the world and give it to others. With compassion comes number 9, which is love and learning self-love. And I spent my entire life hearing this, you know, you have to love yourself before somebody else is going to love you. And I was like, that's great. Where do I buy it? Where's the store? Where's the class? Where's the whatever? And so I had to learn, and learning to love the fuck out of myself was an arduous process. You know, it takes a lot of vigilance to replace old thinking, especially when you come from a place of self-hate, to move into a place of self-love. And so what I learned were the key things for that was a lot of reparenting. And when I say reparent, I parent that inner child. You know, I got myself a hammock. I do affirmations. I listen to soothing music. I give my inner child and listen to my inner child, and have conversations with my inner child. And as the wounds, one after another began to surface, because what we're clearing out is all our lifetime of suffering in this process that we have previously repressed and shut down. And so self-love has been a journey. It has been a journey. For 3 solid years, I've been in the practice of self-love, and it will be something that I continue to do for the rest of my life. And it means a lot of things that come with self-love. You know, it ties into valuing yourself, seeing your self-worth, having healthy boundaries, working on your fears and sitting in your fears and reminding yourself it's okay to have fears. It's okay to feel fear. Let's work through the fear. Let's work through the emotion. Let's work through it instead of avoiding it or repressing it or denying it or deluding ourselves or any of those types of energies, because that's what a parent would ultimately do. And this spiritual awakening, your twin flame activation, is really the journey of spiritual maturation. So I kind of look at it as the world is full of inner children dressed as adults, playing games with each other. You know, we're all just children. And so when you begin the process of a spiritual awakening, or you've had that activation, what's actually happening is you're coming back into wholeness. You're bringing all your wounded children back into wholeness and comforting them. And in so doing, you'll grow up. You know, when my awakening started, I felt like a 2-year-old. I was like, you know, I felt like an infant at times. And then I was going through these stages where I was like, you know, I feel like an 8-year-old. I feel like a 14-year-old. You know, maybe right now I'm at about 22 or something like that. I certainly don't feel by no means 51. But this is spiritual maturing that's happening on this process. And so I do have appreciation for that. But to mature means sitting in the suffering of all of those wounds, and hearing them, allowing them, showing them compassion, showing them love, showing them care, showing them nurturance, giving yourself all of the things that you weren't given as a child. Because trauma is not just about what happened to you, it's also about what didn't happen to you. And if you were bullied at school, failed a math test, and you came home and you needed to have validation or a sympathetic ear or care or love or a hug, and you didn't get that, all of those things are woundings too. So you need to give yourself all of the things that you weren't given while you're re-experiencing the suffering that happened 40 years ago. So number 10 that ties into the self-love is the healing. Because when you start to love the fuck out of yourself, you begin to heal all of those wounds. So it's through the suffering that you have to go through it not over it, not around it, not under it. You have to go through it. When you go through the suffering, you sit in it, you allow yourself to cry the cries, you allow yourself to feel the fears, you allow yourself and you guide yourself through it. What happens is you heal. There's healing, that's massive healing. Just look at my body, like look at my eyes. I look back at photos of me from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and I'm like, who is that unhealthy person? And now I'm like, wow, I can't believe I've done that all. And it's not me that's done that all. It's through this journey, through this, I've been guided. I have been guided by spirit to get into my healthiest version of myself. And I think that's just mind-boggling. It really is mind-boggling when you think of one after another, all of the things that I had to quit and give up. Sugar, dairy, gluten, caffeine, alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, pharmaceuticals, self-loathing, catastrophizing, toxic people, narcissistic energy, creating boundaries, like the list goes on and on and on and on. And that's what healing is a continuum of sitting in suffering, identifying and seeing what the suffering is, allowing yourself to be in the suffering and transmuting the suffering. And it's through this process that you begin to heal and let go and release all of the things that kept you in suffering loops. And so that's what we do. We stay in loops. Like if we look at an abusive marriage, you're in a constant state of suffering and not suffering, suffering, not suffering, suffering, not suffering. And it's that loop that you clip, you cut, you break the cycles of suffering. And whether maybe that's a suffering loop mentally, of catastrophizing. Oh no, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, predicting this, predicting that, the worst case scenario, I'm never going to this, and then you clip that and you come back into presence. So one after another, the suffering is teaching us to free ourselves from karmic loops. And thinking and behaviors and all these other things. And each time you clip the chords, and it's a song by Imagine Dragons, Whatever It Takes. That was my theme song for a very long period of time. I just kept it on auto repeat, which talks about, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to break the binds. Okay, whatever it takes. So go listen to that song and put it on as your theme song if you're in suffering, because it'll motivate you. Number 11 is universality and understanding that I am one of a whole. And so this connects in more to kind of Buddhist teachings as well, but it's the law of oneness, because the more that I heal myself, and the more I can understand what is right for everyone. So Buddha talks about right action, right thought, right word, right deed, as these are all the steps out of suffering, right? So when I was going through my own suffering, it really cemented into me my ethics and my values, because ego is what's good for me. Ego is, how is this going to work for me? And even from the point of view of an empath, a lot of our people pleasing and things like that we think of as being kindnesses. Aren't I so kind? Well, they're not kind. They're actually very manipulative energy, because it comes from a place of, if I can satisfy you in some way, then you will be calm and therefore I will feel safe. So it comes back to a selfish motivation. It's not a self-sacrificing isn't a kindness. Self-sacrificing is a self-motivated, I need to feel safe, I need to feel loved, I need to feel secure, and I'm hoping that if I do this for you, that you're going to reciprocate and give this to me. And so when you break that habit and come back into a greater alignment, you start to understand things from a much more communal kind of that it's actually not kind of me to satisfy your needs ahead of mine. It's not kind of me to try to fix you. That's robbing you of the opportunity to learn your own karmic lessons. It's actually not kind of me to come in and save the day because, you know, I'm trying to keep things safe over here. It's actually kinder for me to walk away and let you learn your own lessons if you're not learning them, you know? And so that comes back to boundaries a little bit. And so, you know, I very much learned through this process that I have this underlying addiction to codependent kind of thinking of, you know, I'm going to help people. In helping people, I'm going to like get something from them. They're going to love me back. And well, there's nothing that teaches you harder on the twin flame journey. That's not how it works. Because you feel love for somebody and you don't get that back. So, and that lesson is an amazing one, but not so much what I'm talking about in regards to the whole. You start to love from a place of on a greater degree of authenticity. And when you're in authenticity, you no longer are trying to manipulate any situation for your betterment. You're trying to create something for the wholeness, for the betterment of all. So it cemented into me my core values and my ethics, and those being integrity, trust, truth, honor, as 4 fundamentals to my standpoint. And so sometimes I've had to make decisions that weren't what I wanted. I had to walk away from situations because it was in the betterment for everyone. Ethically, it was the right decision to do. Making ethically right decisions is not popular. So popularity is the opposite of communal thinking. You know, communal thinking stands in a higher degree of truth than, and so yes, truth is not a popular. Truth is less popular. Ego wants popularity. Soul wants truth. And the more that you stand in truth, the better it is for everyone else concerned. Because if your truth is, I don't want to do that, I don't believe in that, and you then pull yourself away from something, you may not be looked at as you may not be respected for it. It may not be the group decision, but it definitely is. It teaches, it's a teaching that says, yes, I'm going to do what's right for me because what's right for me is right for the group. Otherwise, there's a manipulation at play. Popularity is a manipulation that's at play. I hope that made sense. That last one was a little bit like, whoa, but it made sense to me a little bit. Because ultimately, I think truth, integrity, and it is honoring the other person. You're not agreeing with them, but it's honoring the other person. So this is a little bit of a longer video than I had intended, but that's okay. Those that appreciate these little life lessons that I'm currently sitting in, the energy of gratitude for the suffering, will appreciate it. If you're in suffering, perhaps you will too appreciate it. And if you need any help transmuting through your own suffering, and you would like to set up a one-on-one Zoom with me, the way to do that is to email me at justbebeing. The email's in the description below. And we can set up a Zoom call. And thank you again. Seriously, thank you for all the likes, the shares, and the subscriptions. I greatly appreciate it. If you would, I've had somebody ask me recently about donating to the channel. I have a link for that. All of my services are donation based, if you aren't aware of that, and I look forward to hearing from you. With that said, peace out.